Hi, my name is Anna Bauer-Rice, and the reason for creating the Entrepreneur's Homeschool Coach was because I was that entrepreneur that homeschooled their child. And when you are an entrepreneur and you have a six-figure income business and you're homeschooling your children, there are different things that we need to know. If you're a person who is just thinking about homeschooling, then season one would be for you. If you are looking for who were my mentors, how did I make work life, school, education balance, then this show is for you. Listen, get some ideas, listen to the experts that I interview. It really helps to hear social conversations on how you can achieve your goal and have success. And we have communities that meet, we have resources for you. Please reach out, enjoy the shows, ask questions, get in touch with us, and we will become community. That's what this is all about. You're not alone. You're an entrepreneur and you're home educating. And it's not easy, but it can be done, and it can be done with great ease, even with teenagers. So I look forward to learning about your families, and I look forward to sharing much time with you. So please enjoy what we are bringing to you through the Entrepreneur's Homeschool Coach.
Yeah.
And going through the lost tools of writing, looking at how to think ahead. So then when our children were teenagers and going to parties and wanting to go to parties and things like that, they were done their schoolwork.
That's really nice, and it dawns on me two things. My brain went in two directions like it often does, but it dawns on me that one of the things we're trying to do in the Lost Tools of Writing is teach categories of thought. Right, they're tools.
Right.
Tools of writing. Well, what are the tools of writing? Mostly thoughts, ideas, categories, questions, right? And one of the things we're trying to teach, therefore, in the Lost Tools of Writing is the categories that are useful to think with and the questions to ask. And it sounds to me like whether you did it consciously or not, or maybe you didn't need it, but you had categories by which, if the question of going to a party comes up, you had categories and questions by which you could discuss it and not just have a rule-based house where you actually could think and they could be learning. Mm-hmm. And that was the other thing I was thinking about, is how you talked about having plants and animals. And one of the things I think maybe I'll go so far as to say the essential role of the parent is to transfer authority to the child over himself, over herself. But the way we learn how to rule ourselves is by learning how to rule other things that are inferior to us. I know our age doesn't like thinking like that, but that's why our age isn't good at ruling itself. But if you want to gain power over yourself, then you have to gain power over your toys, right? You have to put your toys away. I had a chat with my 6-year-old granddaughter recently about cleaning up, and I said, "You are a princess, and those are your subjects." Right, and it is your role to make sure that your subjects are well taken care of. You have to make sure that no harm is going to come to them, and so that's why you're putting them away. And at first I thought, Andrew, why are you talking to this child like this? You're such an idiot, which is true. Nonetheless, she was with me. She actually understood it. She kind of smiled and put them away.
Right.
And then what happens once they've learned how to put toys away? Then you can give them something that will die if they don't take care of it, like a plant, right? And what you don't want to do in that case is give them a plant and then rescue them. If they don't take care of the plant, then the plant needs to die, because it's better that a plant die, well, than something more like a gerbil or an animal, right? But then once they've established that they can rule a plant, thereby demonstrating that they can rule themselves, then you give them an animal. Right, some sort of an animal that they can name and tend and care for and love, right? And then when they get older, they've been learning how to govern themselves. And so when a boy then is interested in a girl, the biggest concern is, well, okay, you want to have this relationship with an equal now. How did you do with the things that you're better than. Because I can tell you, you're not better than her. Can you care for and can you husband her as you learn through husbandry, right? And that's, I think, one of the main things that a homeschool home naturally does better than a school setting.
Yes.
You aren't given much authority in a school setting.
No.
But in a home, it's very easy to give bits of authority. And that's why I would, this is a tip for dads. When the guy comes over and says, I want to date your daughter, this is the question you should ask the guy. Tell me about how you fast. Right? Because if you can't deny yourself food, you're asking me to trust you to deny yourself a deeper appetite. Let's talk about this, right? And I know fasting is not popular, but then neither is sexual purity, right? And there might be a connection between the two. But it's all about ruling, right? It's all about coming to rule yourself. One of the mottos we live by at Circe is free people rule themselves. What makes you a free person is that somebody else doesn't rule you. But if you can't rule yourself, somebody else has to rule you.
Right.
And so the whole purpose of childhood is to gain mastery over yourself. And that means over your thoughts, and that means being able to make decisions over your thoughts, over your feelings, over your purpose in life, over your relationships, over your pets and animals and household. All of that is self-governance. Yep. And that's why the proverb says it's easier to rule a city than it is to rule yourself. Right. Well, then start as early as you possibly can. And what the Lost Tools of Writing, to bring it back to that, what we're trying to teach in the Lost Tools of Writing is pieces of rulership, of mastery over your mind in small portions. The categories and questions are tools of the ruler, of the one's own mind, right? And so then you can go on and master more difficult things like algebra, calculus, the sciences. Right?
I'm good.
Well, not everybody's called to rule it all.
But that's true. That's the next one I'll use. And I was thinking about, and what jumped into my mind as you were talking about, there's a lot of people, because I look on social media, what are people's concerns? Mm-hmm. What is going on in their minds? And I've been seeing, I want to homeschool, my child's going to be 2.
Uh-huh.
And I've been kind of screaming
in my head. So where should I put the chalkboard?
Well, right, and I've been kind of screaming in my head because it's like, what curriculum do I use?
Yeah.
And then my heart hurts.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, there's a saying that, when you live in a big city and there's that daycare or that private school,
right.
As soon as the pregnancy test is positive,
right, you got to sign up.
Okay,
yeah.
So I'm thinking the gift for parents at the baby shower or the announcement, we're having a baby, mm-hmm. is Lost Tools.
Huh.
Think about that, because that could be a gift.
I like it, of course.
Because you're starting to think, and when you're thinking in in a constructive way, and you are learning, you start living that, and then when your baby gets here, it's an automatic. It's just automatically what's going on, and if you're already living in your field of favor in your career.
Uh-huh.
That's one reason it was easier for me, because I wasn't, and my husband may have not appreciated this all the time, but I was not about chasing the money.
Mm.
I never went for that's not who I am.
Mm.
I am about serving and uplifting your life.
Mm.
And I've always been that way my entire life. And so I ran my business that way, and I was in my field of favor of helping families and helping them through learning difficulties. So it's the field of favor, and it's a very natural thing. Mm-hmm. So it didn't feel like real work and hard work for me, but I still needed to
I think
study.
That's what Jesus meant by you took up the yoke, you took up his yoke.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go out and take the world's yoke.
Right.
And oh my goodness, the world, they love yoking us.
Right.
Oh boy, do they love that. They love showing us how bad we are at things.
Right.
And our Lord just isn't like that.
No.
And he does have a calling for each of us. And it's not that it's not going to torture you, and it's not that it's not going to kill you. It's a cross.
It's difficult.
But there's a joy in it that simply isn't there, that the world cannot give. Field of favor is such a good term.
It is in the field of favor. My field of favor is I can see things in families that some pivots need to be made sometimes, and sometimes it's just a different thought process. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, because we're talking about core strength versus neurological strength, two totally different things. And so when you pivot your thought process and how you're looking at something, it makes a world of difference. Right. And so for me, I just see it, and I see it very naturally. However, needing to stay on top of knowledge and wisdom in those fields, I did not always care for, because it meant a lot of reading.
Right.
And being a woman on the go, I didn't want to take that. However, my trained thought processes got me there, and that's how I could do both. I was in my field of favor, and I found mentors.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
Cersei Institute was a mentor, and a mentor doesn't always have to be a person. It could be, I've read things that you have, the articles you've put out, blogs you have going on, and then when a class came to town, I didn't take every single one of them, but I started really developing and understanding and going to the classes. And it took me a little bit longer. I would go to a class, I would get the books, I would go through the class, and then I would go home on my own and do some work. And then for me, I'd go back and take the same class again, because I learn a little bit differently.
Can I interrupt you? Because you're saying something here that I really want to celebrate.
Okay.
The simplest way is you took on the challenge.
Oh, yes.
But the other way to put it is, our age is obsessed with removing friction, right? So we want the digital realm. The purpose of the digital realm is to make things smooth, so there's no friction, right? But the trouble is, if there's no friction, there's no memory, right? And because you were willing to work at it, to sit in a session and then go home and think about it in another context, your personhood was involved. Your mind, yes, of course, but like you talked about core strength and neurology, right? They are very different, but they're also intimately bound together.
Yes, they are.
We're one person, right? And so when we want to do everything digitally and everything fast and everything smooth without disruption, well, you can have a perfectly smooth life then, and it'll be as empty and shallow and uninformative as sin. And what makes family life so valuable and what makes community life so valuable is that it's hard, that it happens in time and space, that it draws out of you potentialities, if we can put it this way. It draws out of you potentialities that can't be drawn out from you any other way. Can you imagine, for example, if a football team practiced online? Can you imagine what what makes football is the tension and the friction and the combat. Can you imagine a baseball trying to curve without friction in the air? Right? And yet that's what we want our minds to do, is to think without friction. Right? But it doesn't work. If you want to remember things, you want as much of your body, as many of your senses as you can possibly get involved, because those will arouse your attention. And everything depends on attention. And you are giving, because you had a will for it, you are giving it your attention. Not because somebody from the outside was forcing you to, but because you knew you needed it for your purposes. Right. And as a free person, you are subjecting yourself to the friction of life and the stresses and difficulties of life.
Yes.
And I just want to say to moms and dads and students, don't run from the friction. It's hard, yes, but it makes your life worth living, right? And I would even go so far as to say, if you possibly can find a regular old typewriter, regular as in the old days,
yes,
non-electric, or maybe electric, but a not word processing typewriter, you'll write better.
Oh, wow.
You'll think better. But if short of that, even better, write by hand on paper, and you will write better, guaranteed.
You can come to my home, and any book or Bible that I have touched.
Oh, it's written in.
I signed up for some classes, and I'd taken, I'm doing BSSM, and it's by the Supernatural School of Ministry out of Redding, California, and everything is online, and it's wonderful. And I say, what are the books that are coming for this year that we're required to read? And I have them all shipped to my house because I need it in my hand. I need to turn the pages. Yep. I need to write.
Yeah, that's a good example of what I'm talking about.
I am a color-coded woman as well, so I'm writing in color, and it's a delight to see something I've touched, unless you're totally opposite of me.
Right. Don't write it
the book.
Well, and I'll say about anybody who was picking up Kindle books or Nook when those first came out, there were a few people, I think, younger people, who thought, yeah, I can read this way and it'll be the same. But anybody who ever read a book before picking up the Kindle book or the Nook knew that what was happening while you were reading a digital book was not the same, that you couldn't remember things as well. I can't remember. Neither can almost anybody else. I believe that there are people, it just has to be the case that somewhere out there, there are people who do better. But I can say to the people watching this, you're not one of them, right? You're a normal person with a body, and your body needs to be involved in reading. Even if it's just knowing that it's this portion of the page over here, or there's this much weight in the book, right? There's all these intuitive things that we feel with the paper book. And it's reading and writing, they need to be done as physically as possible. This is maybe the great lesson of our age, is that we are not brains and vats, right? We are minds in bodies, and our brains are in our fingertips, right? You talked about the neurology again. The brain is not just here. The brain, it's a neurological system that's probably even beyond the limits of our physical, like what we see and sense as our physical body. It's probably so intimately connected with the environment around us that we can't separate ourselves from it, right? And what they're trying to do now is reduce the brain to something that you can take out of your head and put into a computer and have a memory. And then if they can preserve that, they'll think it's consciousness, and then you're going to live forever because the computer disk is never. I mean, what kind of absurd perversity is this? Look, Jesus explained all of this when he became man. He took on a body because he was pleased to, right? You should not be ashamed to take on the body that God has prepared for you, just as Jesus was not ashamed to. A body he had prepared for each of us. And it's a good thing. It's what we learn with.
Yeah, it's amazing that I have had, I don't know, some dyslexia, and I will read backwards.
Oh, interesting. So you should have been Arabic or Hebrew.
Yes. And my husband and I first got together, I was trying to explain to him, I read backwards, and he didn't get it until we owned a business that was a brain integration program, and he's like, oh, okay, I see this. And so I am great for editing, because I am a word for word kind of person. But now, and I did not know how to read above 5th grade level until I was 25.
Wow.
And so I viewed the world very differently. So some of the tools that you teach, I grasped very quickly.
Yeah.
But then there was others that I really, really struggled with. And it was like, be in conversation with me over. So that's why I took the class, went home and cross-tested my world in this world. And then I go back to the class and I had questions to ask.
Good.
And so that's when I developed relationships with some of your coaches.
Good.
Because I could ask these side questions. And, you know, they were very compassionate and gave a lot of grace.
I'm so happy to hear that.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's kind of how Matt and I met.
Oh, yeah?
One of my venting moments of, this makes no sense to me, help me. Yeah. And I am appreciative to you saying yes, because this has been an undertaking, especially with some pushback from educators and, you know, the schools and maybe even some government, and saying yes, steadfast, following your field of favor. That is very important. And I've been blessed
I'm glad.
And my family's been blessed, and quite a few classical conversations people, because I was a director and I helped get it kicked off in Texas. And
I'm so glad to hear it.
my family, I just don't think our family would have produced such awesome citizens if we hadn't have had some Circe dropped into our lives. Yeah, I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And is there anything that you would like to tell the audience that you find this is important, everybody should know?
Well, if there's the one thing, it's going to come across as glib, but trust Jesus. He deserves to be trusted. He's never failed. And when you start feeling panicky and when things are not, and you will, when things are not going the way that you expected them to go, then keep your compass pointing north and keep seeking the simplicity that he gives us. And don't let fear of your reputation, don't let fear of your child's future career or the future, even the world economy, don't let any of that distract you. After all, the church, the history of Christianity is a history of people who joyfully got their heads chopped off, got eaten by lions. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but they knew something. There was something about their lives that they understood. And you can't just go, well, if I'm about to get eaten by a lion, the Lord will come to my rescue. Each and every day, we should be taking up our martyrdom. Each and every day. I mean, look, okay, this is how I want to put it.
Okay.
Because this is my deepest conviction, is that I mentioned earlier, the two things we don't think about in education is the child and Jesus, which are the two most important things. The other person who's most important is mom, and she's the other person who is most overlooked. So the child, the mother, and Jesus. Well, what's that? Right? That's the incarnation of our Lord. That's Mary and Jesus. And when the angel is talking to Mary, telling her that she's going to have a child, he says to her, "A sword will pierce your heart." And I am convinced that every woman who's ever had a baby has known that sword. It hurts, and it's hard, and it's full of anxiety and worry to have a child. And we dads do not understand it very often anyway, in the depth of intimacy that you have, you moms, with your children. Have pity on us. We can't understand that. But don't fear the sword, because it is by the suffering that you go through in raising your children, and by pouring your life into them, and the unfathomable joy that gives you, and the new world that you're creating by raising your child faithfully, that miracles occur, and that you'll find your fulfillment. Don't let anybody anywhere ever tell you that there's anything anybody could ever do more holy, more eternal than giving your life to another person, especially that one or those 12 that the Lord has put in your body and then brought into the world through you. That's the holiest, most sacred relationship on earth. And don't let anybody ever undercut that. It hurts. You know that better than I do. It hurts to give birth to a child, and it hurts to raise a child. I'm 60. We have 10 grandchildren now. It never stops hurting. But the joy is attached to the pain. And if you run from the pain, you won't get the joy.
And when you are rescuing your child, I see a lot of rescuing. They need to fail. One of Eric and my big things
That's just, let me quickly say, and then you go on. That's part of your pain as a mother.
It's horrible.
Yes, because if you're rescuing them, you're doing it for yourself, not for the child.
Right.
Unless they need to be rescued, but
Right. Yeah, there's this line, and there's some things, and Eric and I had always had the saying, it's like, okay, let them fail and hang themselves, so to speak, as much as possible till they're 24.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, and I'm not sure where we got the 24,
Yeah.
but it was like there's so many in development and child development you see, and it's like it's okay to let them hurt. It's okay to let them be uncomfortable, and it's okay that they go without a meal. It's not going to kill them. It truly will not. It's uncomfortable to live it and go through it, but they need to learn these things before 24. And so, yes,
Yeah.
it is. And it can, as a mom, it can be lonely.
Oh, yes.
It is. I mean, I had to make some decisions in our family, and it left me kind of lonely because we were the weird people. We actually, the nearest homeschool child to us, we were in a neighborhood in the city, it was 45 minutes. And so I had to work to get relationships and to, you know, have doing different things with kids.
And those relationships are so precious.
It's totally worth it. And so it can be lonely, but it's not lonely for long. If you just stay in the presence, ask God, lean in to what He has for you, it will show up at the right time. So I want to thank you for your time.
Oh, it's
and
my pleasure.
I hope that next time I drive through town, we can get back together and get some more knowledge and your wisdom, and just thank you for your yes. I just can't stress that enough. But thank you.
I'm blessed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.